Oh, good.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. This is the second meeting of the UNWLA Book Club, and I'm thrilled to be here, thrilled to see all of you, and absolutely thrilled to see my co-moderator and actually the founding mother of this book club, if we can call her that, and our special guest, Oksana Lutsyshyna, whose book we have all just read and we're going to talk about. Oksana Lutsyshyna is a rock star in the Ukrainian literary scene. She's an award-winning writer, poet, literary critic, scholar, and translator, and a very astute commentator on Ukraine's literary realities, particularly on Facebook. I really enjoy reading her posts, so I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to speak with her today. The book that we're talking about is called Love Life, and who hasn't had a love life? Love Life has been translated into English, and since 2019, people have been able to actually, no, actually not since 2019, much later. The book came out in 2019. Yeah, but it has been published and we have all read it. And we're really looking forward to digging into this story, which is about many things. Even though it has a title that's Love Life, it is about many, many, many other deeper things, but particularly about love. So I'm thrilled to be here. I'm happy to open this discussion, and I turn it over to my co-partner in crime, Anya.
Ira, thank you very much for such a beautiful and powerful intro. I'm really flattered. And Oksana, welcome. And I just want to say that for those of you who joined us for our first session of our book club on Cassandra, today it's a different kind of reading experience. I would say that it's more internal, but at the same time, it's very intense. And this is not like a big dramatic book, but it really pulls you into the characters' inner world and emotions. And Ira, I would like to start with asking you two questions. My first question is, what was your first reaction after finishing the book? And was there like anything that really stayed with you? But before you answer, I'd like to share mine. Um, this book really resonated with me in a lot of ways. And especially when I was reading about Sebastian, I had that moment when I was like thinking to myself, oh, I know your type, and oh, girl, you're in trouble. And I actually pulled out a couple of quotes that really stayed with me. And if you don't mind, I would like to read them, and then I would love to hear your opinion. So the first one, um, at moments like these, Inga could let Carlos go with some ease, and her own determination amplified her imagined satisfaction. The determination to let him go also bred new confidence and a new hope. It's impossible. Just look around. It is easy to find a woman like me. I just don't believe it. And you know what else? I know he loves me because I love him. How could someone not respond to being loved when they are loved this much? So this is the first quote, and the second quote, Sebastian was silent for a moment and then said, slowly and emphatically, generally speaking, I like younger women. I'm very happy with younger women. They haven't had their minds and bodies spoiled yet. Very young girls with delicate bones. You could say they're officially my fetish. So, I mean, it's really something, and it really gives you something to think about. So what about you?
I I can't say that this is my favorite book that I've ever read, but I do want to say that this book shows me a vulnerability in people that can lead to destruction, that can lead to a kind of a total emotional dismemberment, which is what happens to our heroine, Yora, as a result of this love, this affair that she has with this man called Sebastian. And for me, I think her fragility is probably one of the main characters in the novel. And that fragility becomes part, becomes very, very apparent as a result of his of the presence of this man in her life. Um, I don't know how many of us have experienced this kind of uh, all-encompassing, obsessive, and ultimately sort of negative and destructive kind of love. But Yora experiences it full, to the fullest extent, and she eventually pulls herself back from the abyss. But that for me was the strongest part, that people are fragile. Maybe I don't think that women are more fragile than men. I think women actually, I think we're spiritually stronger than men, and we have a lot more sort of inner backbone. But certain things can trigger destructive processes in your psyche and in your heart.
Mhm.
And we see this happening with Yora. And that's the thing that struck me the most.
Before we actually dive deeper into the novel, I'd like to start with something that really stayed with me after we had a short conversation with Oksana Lutsyshyna. When I asked Oksana if she had received any feedback from American readers, especially American women, she said that some of the readers reacted negatively to the book. And they were in a way uncomfortable with what the book reveals, right? And Oksana's explanation was really interesting because what made people uneasy was the sense that somehow you could see Yora as a victim of certain emotional forces or circumstances, right? And it struck me as odd because, like today, this idea, like you said, of being vulnerable, of being not fully in control, almost feels unacceptable, right? And mm, today, we are expected to be like to always be strong and to always be in charge of our lives. And it's like it's bullshit because like I don't want to see how perfect you are when everything else is like falling apart, right? I want to see your flaws. I want to see your vices. And when I was reading Love Life, I actually saw Yura as a very human character with both strength and vulnerability. And it made me think, why are people so uncomfortable with vulnerability today? And that's actually my first question to Oksana. And then the second one is that do you personally see Yura as a victim?
Well, thank you so much, Anna, and thank you, Irena. Thank you so much for this introduction and for organizing this event. I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you're running this club and inviting people to learn more about Ukrainian literature, which I think is one of the paramount tasks for us now. And it's also paramount in because we sometimes don't know how to read our own literature because a lot of it was banned or misinterpreted or in other ways reducted. So, to answer your question about vulnerability and to kind of connect it with the intense reactions that it causes in people, no matter the context, I would like to start with a little, very short personal anecdote. How many people here have seen the film called Гніздо Горлиці? It's a Ukrainian film, so I don't expect people from United States to have seen it.
I've
Well,
seen it.
you've
Mhm.
seen it.
Yeah.
So it's about a woman who is a total different story. There's no comparison of the story. I'm just talking about the reaction. It's a story about a woman who goes to Italy to earn some money because in Ukraine it's kind of impossible to earn money. So she gets hired as a like a housekeeper to an Italian family, and then of course it's a mess, and and then she comes home, and it's kind of her relationship with her husband suffers. And when I was watching it, I was angry. I was like, this woman is insane. What is she doing? Why is she doing what she is doing? This is not right. And then I realized many years after, about 5 years after, that Rimma Zubina, that's the actress who played the role of the main character there, actually did the great job of showing these ambiguities of a living person and to kind of leave us more with a question than with an answer. The epigraph to the novel we are talking about today, Love Life, one of the epigraphs comes from Bruno Schulz. It's a Polish writer I wrote a dissertation on, and in this epigraph, he's basically talking about an image of an angel that you are fighting in with when you're asleep. And that refers to the story of Jacob fighting an angel. So I think some pieces of literature are meant to be that angel with which you fight, just like any other pieces of art, rather than the pieces you love to death immediately. I resented Hniezdo Horlicy, the film, for a few years, and then I finally understood it. And I cannot say I loved it or I didn't love it. I think I was mad at the reality it depicts, and I transferred it onto the artistic effort that was put forth to bring this reality to us, because we like reality to be a little bit embellished in literature often, or at least to make it a little bit more easier swallowed or something like that. So the other thing that I noticed, it's a generational cultural thing. We like to think that literature is transcendental. I hate to break it to you, it's not. It's very culture specific, it's generation specific, and it's probably stopped being universal, I don't know, after the Gutenberg thing, and everybody started having their own book. We still expect every book to be the book. That's the Polish writer Witold Gombrowicz, who spent his life living in Argentina, pointed that out, that such books are in the past. Everybody now is swimming in this huge ocean of books, books that speak to them, books that don't speak to them. So, and to return to the vulnerability, I think that this woman belongs to a particular context. I mean, if we look into what her past is, she's from obviously a post-Soviet country. We're not naming it, but you can kind of intuit it's Ukraine. There's a reference to Okean Elzy somewhere towards the end of the book. Which means her upbringing was very different than that of an American woman. So basically, women of my generation who were born in the Soviet Union, back in the Soviet Union, will be a totally different person from somebody born and raised in the States. Also very different from the generations of our daughters, whom we raised to spot Sebastians and to kill them immediately. I'm kidding, of course, we know killing should be involved, but to kind of like eliminate them from our lives. So this is a vulnerability of a post-totalitarian subject, who one important feature of a post-totalitarian subject is that a post-totalitarian subject has no idea that they are in fact a post-totalitarian subject. They think, I'm just like everybody else. I'm empowered. I'm doing just fine. I'm in America. Things are good. And then things start not being good. And the person doesn't even know how to have a dialogue about themselves about it. I'll shut up now.
So let's follow up on that. So
Yeah.
if she doesn't know how to have a dialogue about it, how do we bring her to an awareness of that?
We don't?
Because in the novel, she doesn't get there.
She gets there, just slowly and on her own terms. And you know what? I know many people who never did.
Mm. So you think she does get there? Because
Yeah.
I wasn't convinced. Mm.
Yeah. Well, it's a process. If I were to write a continuation or a sequel of that, then it would probably be a very different person. But it takes years to get over something like this. So one key that people use to read the novel, and I don't mean the key that's at the end of the novel, I just mean like a paradigm, is psychology. But psychology is an instrument that is less fine than art. It's kind of utilitarian in a good sense. And I'm saying as someone who owes my life to generations of American psychologists that worked with me, because I was also a post-totalitarian subject when I came here. And my daughter is a psychologist, believe it or not. So I have a long-standing relationship with psychology. I wanted to be one too, and I even studied a bit, and then I realized that I like writing more and I like literature more.
Well, we're glad that you like writing more. So let's go back to this post-totalitarian subject, this character, Yora. A big part of the novel is her suffering, her dealing with this fallout of this toxic, ultimately toxic relationship. And so do you think that her suffering is caused completely by this breakdown of this relationship, or does she somehow contribute to it as well?
I don't know. I think that could be asked about any situation in life and any kind of suffering. Buddha would say that human condition is suffering, and there are ways to stop suffering, which means you just have to stop suffering. I haven't reached any high levels of Buddhism, so I'm just saying this to be funny because I'm obviously not there, and most of us are not. So I don't know if it's a question we can really ask. I think it sort of implies that we can avoid danger if we are just attentive enough, and that we can avoid suffering if we are attentive enough. And I think life proves us wrong every day.
If I can just follow up with one other thing, is there anything even remotely autobiographical in this novel, Oksana?
Yeah. Well, yeah, yes and no. Yes, of course, because I lived the path of doing things, but I deliberately chose to portray Yora as a bit of a person at a different stage of life and development. If you look at her, she doesn't have any ambitions career-wise. She doesn't know how to negotiate some things in life, and
She's
I think,
somewhat passive.
yeah, somewhat passive. But see, did you read the
Initially.
novel? Yeah, initially. Did you read the novel that just won the Bookers this year by David
Not yet.
Foley?
Not yet,
It's
no.
called Flesh, and it's about an abused Eastern European guy who comes to the West and has every opportunity, and he cannot benefit from them. And everybody's like, why is this guy so passive? I said, well, because he comes from this place where everybody's forced into passivity. But unlike Yora, when I came to the States, I got myself an army of psychologists. And so in Ukraine now, it's a bit of a fad to say, like, I'm in therapy. That's kind of really cool. It's like you're taking care of yourself. It's like a self-care routine. It's like it used to be, I go to the gym and I was like, I see a therapist. Well, I've seen a therapist since 2002. Some people were not even born then. So what I mean is that I documented my development and my shortcomings scrupulously as a writer would. I'm also a scholar of literature. So, and I did leave behind at least one of my careers, the one in academia, to be able to write more. So, in that sense, I'm watching Yora as an adult would watch a child.
Interesting.
So,
Sorry.
you want, all right. No, I'm just saying that kind of like summing up what has been said is that her cultural background actually affects the way how he chooses a partner. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that was the reason why she got so attracted, so drawn to Sebastian, and why it was so difficult and so hard for her to actually let go of that relationship. And so her grief, like it was already mentioned, becomes physical and affect her health. And my next question is that, was it important for you to show how emotional pain can manifest in the body? Was it intentional from the beginning?
Yes, absolutely. And I think we all can testify to that. We are all a little bit of pictures of Dorian Gray, except that our portrait is a mirror. We look and we're like, oh my God, last time I didn't have this wrinkle or that wrinkle. And that's because we have emotional lives, right? If we didn't have emotional lives, if we never laughed, if we never cried, we wouldn't have those marks. And now only imagine what happens inside us, what kind of vibrations or harmful vibrations our organs pick up. And actually, I don't even know how this will affect generations of Ukrainians now that people are dealing with the war of this intensity for so many years and living in it and dealing with loss and grief and fear all the time, every day. So when I was writing the novel, there was no question. Yeah, definitely. I think pain stores in the body, and it's interesting. I already mentioned my daughter Lydia. She's actually a somatic therapist. These are the therapists that work with the body, through the body, because they say that Western psychology only focuses on talk therapy, and that often doesn't release the trauma. So they're basically working through breath and other practices of grounding to kind of make sure that all this pain that we store in the body gets released. So this is now basically a new science. There's studying somatic experiences of humans.
So taking that approach to Yora's suffering, which becomes which goes from psychological, psychic to physical. Her feet bleed. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking, is Lutsyshyna trying to give us a female stigmata here or something? You know, what's going,
Could be.
you know, what's going on? But she seems to recover psychologically before she recovers physically.
Physically.
Her feet take longer to heal. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a good observation. To be honest, I don't know. I never thought about it, and that's the beauty of it. People can bring their own interpretations. All I know as a living embodied person from my experience and experience of others is that once something gets to the physical level, it's very hard to get rid of. Whilst it's still in the sort of your, I don't know, aura, if one believes in such things, or just in the realm of your emotions, perhaps. But once it enters the physicality, then it becomes, we're pretty much stuck with it very often. And actually, obviously, from what we kind of can intuit, I'm not a doctor, I did consult with one, but whatever. Um, Most likely her disease is autoimmune, so it's body turning on itself. It's actually very common for women, especially because they take things upon themselves in that way. If men turn aggression outward, and I am of course simplifying, not all men do, not all women do, but this is kind of the usual setup in the society where women are still not equal. We can fool ourselves that we are, but we are not. They don't treat us as such. We sometimes don't treat ourselves as such. And there is this ban. A woman should not be aggressive. So then a person turns it against themselves.
Yes, if a man is aggressive, he's assertive. If a woman's
Right.
aggressive, she's a bitch.
Exactly.
Mm,
Yes.
mm, yeah, yeah. Do you like Yora?
Well, I have a sort of a motherly feelings towards her.
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, if it's your child, I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of insane, but what do you do?
And can I just ask you about the writing process?
Yeah.
When you were developing this novel, developing these characters, um, how did you sort of relate to them, and how did you decide how much suffering you were going to inflict upon Yora, and at which point would she come out of it? Did she come out of it on her own, or did you help her come out of it? I mean, I'm really curious about how one shapes characters as a writer.
Mhm.
And one more question to
Yeah.
that. At what point did you know how your story would end?
Would end, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, it depends on the book. There are some books where you have to really work these characters. You have to twist and turn, and you have to just sort of add more characters to elucidate what these characters are doing, and then it's still not working. And sometimes they just come, and I think in this case it was easier. The character was sort of unfolding herself very early on. Actually, this book is a part of a sort of a series. I'm now finishing the other book of that series, but it has nothing to do plot-wise or even themes. I mean, some themes. With this one, and there is also a book of series that I wrote for myself but never published or shown anyone for my own reasons. I was actually, and then there is a third novel that I am not finishing now, but is half done. So, and it was the
Mhm.
third novel with which I started, and the ideas that didn't fit into that one became this one.
Mm.
So it was kind of a convoluted process. And then I realized, okay, I finished these notes that were not supposed to be a novel much sooner than I finished the big novel. So
Hmm.
this was kind of counterclockwise or whatever.
So I want to go back to the quote that I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation when Sebastian talks about girls that he likes to date, like that their minds and bodies aren't spoiled yet. So in this case, does he mean some kind of like emotional immaturity, lack of experience, uh, even intelligence, like intelligence level of some kind,
Mhm.
right? Because like nobody wants to date, like, I don't know, I'm not saying that nobody wants to date, but like it's a little different when you date
Yeah.
in your 20s and then in your 40s because like you have that like baggage of your life experience and you do have some expectations and you don't want to settle for just
Yeah,
somebody.
when you're 20, you have stars in your eyes and you're like, oh, but when you're 35, 40, you just like
Yeah, it's
cut through
like
the bullshit, you know?
But you'd be surprised. It depends on a person. However, in the case of Sebastian, first of all, he's a psychopath. I met such
I was
people.
going to ask you what kind of
Yeah.
a person
No,
he is. Okay.
he's definitely psychopathic. Not all psychopaths kill people. That's
Yeah.
kind of a prejudice. That's like we are all fooled by Anthony Hopkins on screen, and yeah. And the real ones are usually just what you'd call mental vampires of sorts. And they,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, they see people. They see people very well. So he probably saw, okay, this young woman's kind of broken already. Let's try it. He would not approach most of us. Like he would
Us.
kind of because we're smart, right? I mean, he can try to approach, but he knows he has no
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. They're actually highly intelligent. Moreover, they're highly intelligent predators. They studied this stuff, whereas Yora didn't. So she had no chance against someone like that, and that's unfortunately it's a pretty common phenomenon these days. So I know there are different people who behave in this particular way. There's this player type, that sort of plays hot and cold or whatnot. There's this more narcissistic type. This one is the evil type.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the worst. This is the king of vampires, basically, if we wanted to give him a characteristics because of how he gaslights, how well he is how good he is with a narrative, how at the end of the reading the book, people justify him. I've had men who read this book tell me, but he's a nice guy. Like, what's wrong with this woman's insane. This guy's in the right. He's a good person. He warned her about everything. He was very honest. And I'm like, okay. And then the other thing is that psychologists, again, I'm keep referring to them, say that there is no wound as painful as the wound of ghosting, which is something that happens in dating life now a lot. But this
Mm-hmm.
basically throws the person off immensely, and most people are just because it's such a normalized thing, and because because suffering, like Anna mentioned in the beginning, the being a victim is so unnormalized, denormalized, then to sort of say like the guy ghosted me online, it's like people are gonna laugh at you if you say that. It's like, okay, get over it, that's no big deal. But the problem is that suffering and loss does not know logic. So you cannot tell to suffering and loss that, hey, it was not worth having this thing or this guy in the first place, not big of a loss. The pain doesn't go away from that. It takes sometimes years to get it out of your system.
But I have a lot of sort of things about this novel that I find disturbing. But I can't say that I thought of Yora as a victim. I just thought of her as a bit of a psychological mess and very and vulnerable. And like if I met a Sebastian, even if I was 23 or however old Yora is, I don't think that I would have that kind of a reaction if he said that he wanted to, that he had other women on the agenda. And I actually, I found their connection a little bit, I don't know how to say it. Somebody like me, okay, I'm a lot older than Yora and probably a lot more jaded and cynical. So, I'm protected. But
Me too.
yeah, right. But I was really surprised how quickly he was able to get his long talons into her.
Talents.
And yeah, and how she sort of fell for it. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
because he really didn't treat her like you said, what the man said, he told her what the rules are, and then she just becomes a complete and utter mess. I mean, she really, really falls apart and contemplates suicides, for God's sake. My mother always used to say, no guy is worth any of that kind of suffering. No guy, and I agree with her. And so I just, I'm curious about this psychological, psychopathic strength that he has, that he's able to sort of, that he's able like a cocoon almost envelop her in it, and then she doesn't know what to do when it's not there.
Well, I mean, think about Epstein. This idea that young women, I mean, she's not that young, but she's sort of in a frozen state because of post-totalitarianism and the trauma of Soviet Union, where she obviously has no rapport with her parents, her mother, which is very important. And
that's a question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Is she going to call her mother?
No, because she doesn't have one. Mentally, many of us don't. In the Soviet Union, familial relationships were under attack People came together when I was doing my other novel, Ivana Feba, and I had to describe people sitting around the table. What do they talk about? And so I asked on Facebook, and tons of people like, nothing. We talk about nothing. We just yell at each other, or we just say, eat food, eat the yiste, and that's about it. So it's this sort of like collective denial, and one can understand why, because if you look at how KGB terrorized the population, how many people were forced into being informants, and they can never say the honest thing to their family, what it does to you when you're meant to live with these secrets, how many people know their family history and are not allowed to talk about it because somebody was in the gulag or incarcerated or something, or killed or whatnot. So it's like it's a bunch of lies. Or people lived through Holodomor but are not allowed to acknowledge it because there was no Holodomor, right? And that goes on for generations. So then people lose this idea of being able to our parents in Ukraine, we are the first generation of mothers that were sort of affectionate to our kids. The generations of parents back home were basically learning how to say I love you to your kid from American movies. At first, they laughed at these
Yep.
movies, like, what is wrong
Mhm.
with these Americans? They're just so mushy. They sit on their kid's bed and said, oh, honey, have a good night. I love you. It's like a Soviet parent would come up and say, oh, you go to bed, you vermin. I'm done with you for today. And don't forget you have chores tomorrow. So that's that's as to like what the trauma of having no mother is of the Soviet kind. Then back to Sebastian, you will not believe it, but these people, it's like, like so there are some talented painters, there are talented writers. Believe it or not, there are talented despots and talented psychopaths. So I read once a very interesting exploration of Joseph Stalin, and the person who wrote it, and I forget the name of it, it wasn't like a big name or anything, says that Stalin, among other things, was very talented, but that talent was a very dark talent.
Mm.
Mm.
So there are
Mm.
such people, and some of them become Epstein, Stalin, and whatnot, and some of them are much more careful because Stalin and Epstein, in the eyes of humankind, are what? Are criminals, right? Sebastian is not a criminal. He's too smart to become one. He will always find women whom he will gaslight. He will always gaslight the system because remember how Inga says to Yura, go to the police, and Yura's like, what am I going to say to them?
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a state-of-the-art defense system. It's a very thought-through strategy. It's something none of us ever waste time thinking about how to ensnare and deceive other humans because a decent person doesn't need that, right? You want something
Hmm.
good in life. Like I don't want to go around and lie to people. That's not my hobby. But some people's hobby it is.
Yeah. So Sebastian is basically a predator. He
Mhm.
stakes her out in that park, and then he strikes
Yeah,
when he
yeah.
can. Mhm.
Yeah, and he gives her time. He
Yeah.
gives her 3 days, which is all. Actually, this is a French writer, Stendhal, who
Mhm.
wrote a book about, like, I forget how it's called, but the French, they're always so good at constructing rules about love. It's basically like you have to give them 3 to 4 days for feelings to congeal and to come together. If you strike too soon, you're not going to get them. If you wait too
Hmm.
long, they're going to disappear.
Mm.
So it's a calculated attack. Make no mistake. It seems natural and easy. There's nothing natural about it. There's nothing easy. This guy spent years doing this, training. It's his Olympic sport.
Well, actually, when we spoke with Ira on the phone, she actually used that word. He is calculated. It's
Mhm.
like it really is. I mean, it really it's true about him. Ira, do you want to ask a question about her mother, or are we past that one
I think
already?
past that one. There is no
I
much call.
I I do have a question about Inga, her friend, like so-called friend. So what is her role in the story? Because in my opinion, Inga is pretty much a sucky friend. I mean, she stays with Yora as long as everything is okay, but then with all the like when Yora is going through a lot of like suffering and transformations and everything, I mean, we all want to vent, we all want to, talk about it, especially something that really hurts us. And then it just like it reaches a point where Inga tells her, all right, I'm done. I cannot hear any more of your like whining. I'm just like, I'm done with it. I found a nice guy and I'm just like, bye-bye.
Yeah, I think that's just her personality. She tends to Well, to Yora, it's important to know all the ins and outs, to kind of understand things, to have these interesting dreams that tap into the realm of the symbolic. And for Inga, denial. That's a powerful survival mechanism. I think
Mm.
that's what happens. She's also torn away from her country, from obviously her relatives. She doesn't have rapport with her mom either. These are all these psychologically orphaned kids that don't necessarily know how to ask for help. You know what I found is another important characteristics of a person who's traumatized by that kind of a society. It's inability to ask for help. Because
Mm.
Mm.
they, first of all, they don't understand that they need help. Second, they are ashamed that they need help. And third, they push that need so far away that they come across as, you know, how we say like Slavic resting bitch face, you know, kind of like,
Yep.
and everybody tells us to smile, and we're like, about what?
Mm.
So it's our faces even show this, and imagine what's happening like inside a person. So denial becomes extremely effective and very popular tool.
I have one last question, and then maybe perhaps we can ask our gang to pose their questions. I want to know, Oksana, what you think about this. Do you think Yora is okay at the end of the novel? Because I am not sure that she is. I don't. And also, let me
Yeah.
finish my thought. So Inga is a little bit more kind of naked about her need to have a man in her life, even though she's clearly an intelligent woman. She's finishing a master's degree of some sort,
Right.
so she's not a dummy. She's going to have a career and so on. But it's important for her to have a man.
Yeah.
And she goes from Carlos to Donald.
Well, there's
Yeah,
actually, I think there's actually a line in the book where she says that you're no one, nothing without a man. I think
yeah.
there is a
Yeah.
line.
And Yora falls into the clutches of this psychopath Sebastian, and then she just picks up a couple of low
Dudes.
low low lives or something who are basically nice, seemingly harmless up to now. And so I I'm not sure that she has learned much from this experience that she has had. And while there are many things that I could say to criticize her, as as a vulnerable young woman, I feel protective of her and I want her to do well. I don't want her to fall into this shit trap again.
Well, again, it's like watching your kid grow up, and sometimes that
Mm,
kid makes choices you don't like because you as a mother see best, and I know because I am also a mother. And you go like, "Well, no, this guy's not for you, honey. He's not treating you well." And the kid's like, "Oh, but I love him, and what are you gonna do?" So I
yeah,
think it's just a very slow. I say slow, but I say slow because not because it's slow in life, but slow in the timeline of the novel. Like it covers several months, literally. So it starts in the
yeah,
fall, it ends in the spring-ish. So, but I think she's definitely going to
on
be
her way.
she's
Yeah.
she's on her way. She's definitely going to be better. Now, I see why you mean why you're asking this, but I see it perhaps from a different angle. Anybody who has ever met a perverse psychopath of this kind is never totally okay. It's
Mm,
kind of like you have the voice that talks to you, and it's sometimes the voice that saves you because they give you a lot of useful skills in life. You kind of pick up, it rubs off them this cynical worldview that sometimes can be helpful because you're not surprised or shocked anymore. You know, you read about
Mm.
Epstein Island and you're not even surprised because you've seen it.
it's interesting how these psychopaths have a way of dying, whether in prison or in their semi-luxurious apartments. So, can you give us some details of
Yes.
Sebastian's death?
That's a good question. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's actually almost unfair that they do because they should pay for their crimes. They
Right?
actually get off very
Just
easy.
like, yeah.
It's a very easy death, come to think of it. It's like, and why he has some sort of like, that's the thing. We can either read him as like some sort of unhappy lover that decided he's in love or something, which he probably is not. I don't think he is. I think something else in his life was probably crumbling.
Mm.
Um, nobody nobody can know what that was because they have a secret life. They have many secret lives, and you just can't trace what they are. Like he never introduces her to his friends.
Mm-hmm.
He never mentions that he has a son. He's just sort of very secretive all around. The neighbors don't know. Like basically
Mm.
everybody's just on the outskirts. So I imagine he just had some other personal downfall of some sort. Maybe somebody was threatening to take him to court for things unrelated to love. I mean, the guy is probably doing some business, and it's probably shady business if we think about
Could
it.
he have committed suicide?
Well, it is a suicide of sorts. He just committed it by standing in the rain for too long. But he's so smart, he's not even giving us that. We can't say like, well, poor guy, he just got a cold. What do you do?
Mm.
He's
Yep.
very smart. He's like a fish that you just cannot grab. It keeps slipping.
Flipping out, yeah. Mm.
But we got his number, so we're good.
If we got his number, yeah.
All right. I think on this note, we can open up our discussion to everybody who is on the call right now. And